to my family for, like I said, almost 9 months. I was victim of human trafficking in California, and I was kept against my will. I went to work in the strawberry fields. They will take me back to a motel where about 20 of us sleep in rooms, men and women, and a lot of bad things happen there. Helen Ortiz from Guatemala. And being a child for me, my fights in life started very early. So the first memories that I have are not very pleasant. No, as many people talk about what a happy childhood they had. I had a father that was very disturbed, very, he was an alcoholic. And so I went through a very rough childhood. So when you ask me my first memories, unfortunately, are not that of a happy, loving, I had a very loving mother and grandmother, but unfortunately, my father was, like I said, a man that was lost. And I suffered a lot through those years in my life. It definitely was something that marked my life forever, and it's something that I had to learn to overcome. And it's only been by the grace of God that I am what I am. But yeah, I had a few moments, a few times in my life where it was happy going to school. I remember my 6th birthday, with my new outfit and birthday cake and whatnot. But for the most part, were very painful memories. But not complaining. I don't see that as, I see those as opportunities. God chose me to go through that for a reason, and it has made me and molded me into the person that I am now. As time went by, 17 years old, I was a single mom with a 2-year-old boy, and there was no future in our country. I being in a third world country, it's a very it's a different story that most people here don't know. There's no our country is not a communist country, or so it's supposed to be democracy, but there's no freedom of speech. There's no middle class. You either have or you don't have. And obviously we did very poor upbringing. So being a mom, single mom with a 2-year-old boy, it was time for me to do something to change my future and the future of my child, as well as my mother and my grandmother. So it's April 23rd of 1986 when I decided to come to America and find my American dream. Coming across the border as a teenager, illegal. I don't know if you heard about a train that comes across the border. It's called the train of death, or el tren de la muerte, because there's thousands of immigrants who died. They lose their legs, their arms, whatever might be in that process. You are literally traveling on the top of a train for days. And but for me, that was the train of my dreams, because I didn't stop to think what is going to happen, or I was pursuing my dream. And here I am 38 years later. And I can say that I have reached my American dream. I am reached beyond belief for me, because for me, richness is not, or how rich you are, it does have nothing to do with how many zeros your bank account has, but what I have acquired as a person, what I have learned. And I look at my little boy now, he's 41. He has a master's degree in business, and he's very successful and a great man. So it was worth it, and I will do it all over again if I had to.
What is life like in for those of us who don't know? in Guatemala? Like, what are the things you see, the rough things that you see?
Guatemala is it's a, first of all, let me tell you, it's a beautiful country. I
Okay.
mean, there is some areas that it's unbelievable beautiful, but unfortunately, like most of countries, like I said, third world country, it's there's no there's no middle class. You're very poor, you're rich, and obviously the people with the money are the ones that are going to determine what happens.
Uh huh.
Like I told you, when I was growing up, there was a lot of situations, with the there's an army, there's a big army there, but it's people that don't have any regards for human life. It's just like they do whatever whenever, and there's really no one supervising that. No one. It's a mess. Like, and I think that if I would have stayed in Guatemala, being the type of person that I am, I speak for what I believe in. I fight for. I think it's right for me. It probably would have been a problem for me staying. Because I am not a submissive person. I don't
Resistant.
believe exactly. I don't believe in you're just gonna tell me how to live my life, or you're gonna put boundaries. It would have been a problem for me. So there is a lot of situations in our country with the cartel came in. That was after I left, and the situation got really scary. There was a lot of people disappearing, dying, showing up dead, and there was no accountability from anybody. As a matter of fact, when my son was 8 years old, he was taken hostage by a group of crazy people that were with machetes and guns and everything. He was 8 then, and thank God he was able to escape, and and went back home, and we didn't have a tragedy in our hands. But things like that happen all the time. Um, and there was a situation where my stepdad used to be associated with undesirable people per se, and there was a killing involved where he had to leave, and then my mother and my son was left exposed for all, while these people were looking for him. That's when my son was 13 years old, 14. And it was at that time that I had to step up, and by then I was a citizen, but I still couldn't bring my son over. It took me a long time in order to get my son's immigration status approved for him to join me. But that situation that happened with my stepdad, and and people were involved in really bad things, that I presented that case to immigration, and that's how I was able to bring my son
Yeah.
to join us. But that happens all the time. The people, if someone wants what you have, they will take it, regardless of you want to give it up or not. I went to visit my mother. It's been maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and in our small village, everybody use motorcycles for transportation. Not everybody can afford a car, so motorcycles or mopeds. We went to visit, and I bought my stepdad and my mom a motorcycle so that they can ride back and forth to church. My mother and my stepdad, they have a little church that they pastor in our town. And a few weeks after we left, in the middle of the night, some guys showed up, and his motorcycle was tied up with a chain, inside the corridor. And they just came over and caught everything. And he comes out on the window and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they are like, "You know what? If you don't want to die tonight, just go back in your house." And they took the motorcycle, and no one does anything about it. My son went to visit, what was it, maybe 2 years ago, and he was there 11 days visiting. In that time, there was 25 people killed in our town. So on top of the poverty, the lack of opportunities, and the violence that exists, that's what forces us to want to leave and go and find a better future. I wanted something better for my son. I didn't want my son to be forced to go into the military at 18 years old, because you turn 18 and they call you automatically, you have to go. There's no way around that. And I wanted a better future for my son. But that's what you look at, in the poverty, that there's no opportunities to do anything better. Even if you want to, if you have the willpower, there's nowhere to go. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And right now, with this political climate and what's going on with immigration, it's pretty sad to hear comments and see what's going on, because nobody stops and think, why are these people coming to this country? Yeah. Why do you want to? Some people say, why do you come here illegal? We don't want to come here illegal. It's a situation where people don't understand that. How would you want to uproot everything, your life, and leave everything you love, everything you know, for the unknown? You got to stop and think, what are these people going through in that they have to do this? So it's very bothersome when you see everything that is going on in this world right now.
Yeah. Going back to when your son was 8 and he got taken hostage, mm-hmm. Was that a situation with your stepfather, or that's just something they randomly do?
That was something else. My son was going to, back in our little village, you go in the evening, everybody walks everywhere to buy bread, to buy tortillas, to the little convenience store. And my mom had asked him to go and pick up some bread at the bakery. Mm-hmm. And while he was there buying bread, these guys came in with guns and machetes, and they was robbing the place. And my son happened to be there, so they took him. And I believe that there was some people that died that day. And thankfully, my son was one that escaped. I remember maybe I was, I don't know, maybe 9, 10 years old, if I recollect. There was a killing in our town, in our village. 5 people. I remember vividly watching these people just dead right there. Some people on the chairs, some other on the floor, just machine guns. They killed them all while they were drinking in a little pub. And they're just there, dead, and they just pick them up in the back of a pickup truck, and off you go, and end of the story.
You say you saw this?
Yes, I saw that when I was a little girl.
Was that your first time seeing something like
yes, that? It was my first time seeing something like that.
Do you remember how you felt in that moment, what that did to you?
That was my first time experiencing it, personally seeing it, but you hear it all the time, that happened here, happened there, that in a way, it's horrible to watch as a little girl, to watch something like that, but in your mind, it's like, it's normal. And it's sad. It shouldn't be. But that's, what happens. I have friends that I still talk to back home. And right now, the situation with the cartel and all that, it's under control. But there was times where they will come to your house and say, you know what, we want your land. You need to move. You have whatever time to go. And you couldn't argue with that, or you will be dead. And they will get you out of your land and take over. Or somebody wanted your daughter. We want your daughter. Our boss wants your daughter. You can fight it. You can try, but you'll be dead. And those are situations that happen almost every day. And those are conditions that, how can you, there's people that will never leave that environment, and that's all they know. But it's pretty sad.
No disrespect, but you're obviously a very nice looking woman.
Thank you.
How were you able to avoid being taken, like them coming to take you as somebody's daughter?
It was, and I tell you that once again, when you grow up in that environment, you don't think about it, but it could have very well happened to me. Thank God it didn't happen. And I left when I was 17. But now when I go back and visit, I'm scared. I'm afraid. I usually don't go all the way to my village. I have my mother come and meet me in the city because of that. I don't even like to go to sleep when I go visit my mom. I'm scared because they can come in and take you, and there's nothing that you can do, or I'm like, I don't want to go and visit when my mother always tells me, when you come, please don't wear this, don't wear that, don't wear any jewelry. It's a very uncomfortable, you feel so exposed and vulnerable, like that. There's in thinking about going for protection of the police, that's the worst place that you can go, because there's so much corruption because of the 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 poverty that exists, in the inequality in and it's like you poor or you rich, people do whatever for money, to get something, to get a hold of something, and so you are pretty much exposed, to anything that can happen to you. Another situation that I always remember, I was a little girl, I grew up being Catholic. That was what my family did. So, you know, and I remember the church where I did my first communion back in those days. The priest showed up dead. They burned him alive just for going to teach Bible study in the small towns outside of our town, to other little villages around. And I remember when I didn't see him, but I remember saying that they could identify him by his teeth. I was, I don't know, maybe 10, 11 years old when that happened. And that was scary, I mean, the priest. So no one is safe.
Uh, are they also trying to keep y'all from escaping? Too?
I'm sorry?
Try to keep y'all from escaping Guatemala. I want to make sure. Am I
No,
saying Guatemala?
no, I don't believe that they will try to. You can leave anytime.
Okay,
There's
please,
no, they don't control that part.
yeah,
But there was an instance. Now that we're talking about this, sometimes you try to block things from
yeah,
your head. But when I was recruited to be part of the national team, right?
yeah.
I had to go. When I left Guatemala, I was just about 16, 17 years old, so I didn't have all my documents from Guatemala. And when I left, I didn't bring anything with me, because you're trying to stay. If you get caught, they don't know where you're from. So if they send you back, hopefully they send you back just to Mexico, so you don't have to go through all that again. And so when I joined the team, I had to go back to Guatemala and get all my documents to apply for my birth certificate, my ID. So I had to prove to the federation that I was born in Guatemala. That way I could join the team. So we went to the Guatemalan embassy, and we're sitting there waiting for our turn to apply for a Guatemalan passport and whatnot. All of a sudden, these guys come in with machine guns, with rifles, and they threw everybody on the floor, including me, and they said, just push your wallets, your money, your watches. They took, and I had my American passport, and I'm like, if I lose this, I'm stuck here. So I'm hiding the passport, and I'm on the floor, and I took my purse and everything. Everybody's on the ground. They took everything they wanted, and they left. No one, like maybe half an hour later, the police shows up, and some people saying they were in it, and that's usually what happens. So it's not safe. And it's getting worse. You can be driving around in the city with your windows down. If the traffic is horrible, and if you're in the middle of a traffic jam, people come to your window and they can point a gun at you and take your cell phone, take your tennis shoes, whatever they want. So it's violence. It's out of control, definitely. And the government it goes from bad to worse every year. Every time that we get a new president, you hope, just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. It's just a different world, but it's the same thing. You hope that the next guy will be better and they will do something better for the people, but it doesn't happen.
And I was gonna ask you, has any piece of it gotten better from there? But obviously
I don't
not.
believe so.
Yeah.
If anything, the crimes have gotten bigger, and there's so much more. Drugs. It's everywhere. There's so much, and there's no control of any any sort. There was actually, I think that is still happening. You don't see homeless on the street. They disappear. And that is, when I found that out, I was just so sad because they don't want homeless on the street. They just kill them and dispose of them. Yeah. So that's the kind of life that, and that goes not just for Guatemala, Mexico, some countries in Central America, Salvador. It's another story now with the new president. That guy really came in and he cleaned up everything. So Salvador it's a whole different country. He was able to do that. Not exactly sure how, but that kind of life, like I said, it happens in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua has always had issues, and since I remember. As a matter of fact, when I came to America, I came with a friend from Nicaragua because she was exiled in Guatemala for all the when it was all the Sandinistas problems that were going in Nicaragua, and we came together to America. But it's been going on. Like Guatemala has had the longest civil war in the history of the world, and it's no one can change anything. It's pretty sad.
Do you remember talking to your son about how he got away? Like,
He We were just talking about that actually after I talked to Ricky about what we're gonna talk in the show and we were talking about it, and he said, "Gosh, you know what? I hadn't thought about that in a long time." And he's like, I escaped by the grace of God because that they put us all in the corner, and while they were back inside to get whatever they were trying to get, a couple of guys, he just jumped the fence and ran back down to our house. He was a little boy.
yeah.
And he was telling me also about another situation where my mother sent him to pick up some tortillas from the little convenience store, and there's some men drinking out there, and all of a sudden they start shooting each other. He's like, that was the first time I saw a body. He's like, and the guy was without a shirt, and they shot him right in the stomach. He goes, and I was looking at the hole in his stomach, and I can see the blood just gushing out of there. You're talking about a 9, 10-year-old boy. What kind of impact that has in your life. So, and there's so many people that are in situations like that. There's a lot of little kids that are recruited to do stuff like that. I'm going back the times that I go back home. You see kids in the army because, like I said, when you're 18 years old, if they need you, they just come and get you from your house, and end of the story. And you see this teeny tiny little boys that are not even fully grown and malnourished and everything, that the rifles that they carry are bigger than them, and they are just standing everywhere with those rifles, and it's just a sad situation. So those are the things that our country has to offer. And that's why there's some of us that we want better.
Yeah.
And that's why we leave. That's why we leave everything that we know for a better life. Yeah. And that's what I wish that people out there that so much hate us coming here, that will understand that it's not what we want to do, it's what we have to do.
And you're human.
Absolutely.
Just like everybody else who's resisting to it.
Yeah.
What were you instilling in your son? Like, what were you telling him how to? Were you telling him how to maneuver once he going in the streets, or walking to the, I guess you would call it a convenience store, tortilla store, or whatever? What were some of the things you were preparing him for? Like, how would you talk to him about what's going on?
Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know if you remember, when I left, my son was 2 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So he was raised by my mom and my grandma. But my grandma was always so scared of things like this because she saw so much. My grandma was older, so she was always very protective. But how can you prepare someone for that? How can it's out of control.
With the scenery and how it all was going down when you were a kid or whatever, looking back at it, is it part of you that understands why your dad was like he was, or is there?
You know, like I said, my father was a very disturbed man, and we never met the side of his family.
Uh-huh.
And he, in Guatemala, there is a lot of indigenous, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the regionals, you know, the people from the little villages out where. So that's where my father was born. Like, as a matter of fact, I know that his parents from, they didn't speak Spanish. They spoke in a dialect. So I can even imagine how my father, what he saw, how he grew, you know, because those regions are even worse than being in the cities. You know, like there's a lot of violence in those villages way out there where all the the natives are. So I don't know exactly, but I do. It's funny that you asked that because I never thought about that until just now when you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what my father saw. I don't know what happened in his life that was so disturbing that caused him to be the man that he was. But that could very well be, you know, that he experienced so much in his childhood and young adult and disturbed his mind completely, and he didn't know how to be a better person, you know.
And not to give him any excuses or
No, no,
anything, I was
I
just
know.
wondering if that you ever thought back to that.
No, I never, but that's a good point, you know, and that is a good point.
Yeah. Your mother though. I know when cause your mother was good to you, right?
Oh yeah.
Your mother was good
Yeah.
to you. So how hard was it for you to leave her and for her to still be over there while you're here?
It was very difficult, you know, talking to my mom about, mom, I have to go. She was against it all. You know, she's like, no, I don't want you to leave, you know, but I have always been a very strong willed person, strong headed. I know what I want. I know what I want in my life. And I have never stopped at any, I don't stop and think, gosh, am I going to be able to do it? I know that I will be able to do it. And that's how I've gotten through everything in life. So yeah, obviously my mother she was all against it, but I told her that this is the time for me to go. I have to create a future for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't leave, this is where we're going to be all the time, you know, and it's not easy. I don't see her as often, but and now she has a choice to come and visit.
Yeah.
I could go back and visit, you know, we can send money for her to have a better life. So it's okay now, but we went through a very, especially after I got here and I didn't get to speak to my family for, like I said, almost 9 months. I was victim of human trafficking in California, and I was kept against my will. I went to work in the strawberry fields. They will take me back to a motel where about 20 of us sleep in rooms, men and women, and a lot of bad things happen there. But all that gave me a thicker skin, and it helped me. As ironic as it sounds, it helped me in more than one way to be the person that I am now. So my mother thought for all this time that I was dead. You know, she really had lost faith that I was still around until I was able to get out of there and communicate with her again.
Yeah.
So
When you was a child, were there ever times where you just, we see on these movies sometime where people are going through whatever they're going through, but they always have these getaway spots where they can just
yes,
imagine and see a life for themselves. What was that for you?
you know what? For me, yeah, I will be. Growing up in a country like mine, the kids don't stay at home. Your mom don't even know where you are all day. You leave and just come back home for dinner, and you're out there playing in the river, playing in, you know, beautiful country. So I always was playing and out there in the outdoors. But I tell you what, there was always, since I was a little girl, since I even not even thinking about coming to America, I was infatuated with the English language. I wanted to learn. So one of the things that I when you said get away, you are bringing up a lot of things that I wasn't even thinking about, but there was this lady, as a matter of fact, she was African American from America. For some reason, she lived in our town. Miss Bertha, that was her name. We call her Mrs. Bertha. Bertha. And
that's a whole
and Miss Bertha, she had books at home. So all us kids will go to her house, and I wanted a book in English. And she gave me a dictionary and a book. And she said, okay, take this book and take these pages and see how can I translate a book? I don't know anything about English, but I will look word by word. I will take a word from the book in the dictionary, and I just kind of make sense of the story. So that was a good getaway for me, but nothing happens by chance in life. That was a preparation for me, in a way, to come here. Because, I didn't speak English fluent when I came here, but that helped me a lot, to prepare my brain, my mind because it wasn't difficult for me I think back, how in the world did I learn English, I write it, I read it. I never went to school. When I came here, I had to go to work. And so it came easy for me to learn the language. And I really think it was because of those days with Miss Bertha. When I used to go to her house and read books and translate things, and that was a getaway for me. I used to read English in my mind. I was sit there and read out loud. I don't know what the heck I was saying or how you pronounce the words, but it sounded so pretty, those are some good memories, of things that happened when I was a child. Yeah.
Yeah, and you speak it clearly too. I love the way you say pasaporte. I love it. You say that all the time. Pasaporte.
Oh, the
passport.
The passport.
Passport.
Pasaporte.
So
we're going to speak Spanglish here today.
Spanglish.
Yeah.
So that this is just a bit of a walkthrough. Now we're doing the crossover into America, but like getting to the spot you got to get to it, taking that deep breath, probably looking back one more time or whatever, and I'm about to do this. What was that like?
When you are going through it, you really don't think about it.
Yeah.
Something that you have to do it. Yeah. So after the journey on the train, we got to the border. And that's being on the train, there was places that, and it's so weird because there was so many of us on that train. Nobody knows anybody, but everybody knows what to do. Some of them have attempted this many times. Mm-hmm. So people that know what to do, they tell you, the train is going to stop ahead in a little. When the train stops, you have to jump off the train and run and go to the other side of the checkpoint. And then when the train starts to take off, you got to get back on it again. So we went through all that with my friend, and we got to the border. And that was where actually we had to go across the fence. We didn't go across the river. I'm not a swimmer, and I told her if I have to swim, I'm not going anywhere. And I always make a joke about how people call us wetbacks. I said I'm not a wetback because I didn't go across the water. I jumped the fence. So we got to the border, and you lined up against this huge fence. And everybody's just along the side watching the border patrol. And they have just a quick period of time where they switch shifts, I guess. Mm-hmm. And these people know exactly when that's going to happen. And they start, you hear that whistling across and it's like time to jump. And it's a massive amount of people that somebody's going to make it, somebody won't make it. So I had to jump that fence, and you have it's not an easy jump. We had a blanket with us. You have to throw the blanket on top of that barbed wire and jump on it. Yeah. I had scratches all over when I jumped that fence. We made it to the other side. My friend gets caught, and I made it. So those were the memories, leaving all that behind, looking back at all the people that didn't make it. And I thought about giving up, and I'm like, I'm going to go back with them. But I was hiding in this restaurant, which now I know is Pizza Hut. Back then, I didn't know anything. I ran for my life, and I walked in there, and I'm just sitting there, shaking. Then I'm looking, and everybody's being handcuffed, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? That's where we were going, to her family. I didn't know anyone here. We were going to San Francisco. I had no one waiting on me. So I'm petrified. I'm gonna go back and get caught. But then I'm like, you know what? Why did I go through all that travesty for 33,000 miles on that train, not eating, getting sick? I was sick during that trip. I had this boils on my underarms from infections, not eating, malnourished. It was horrible. And I'm like, I didn't go through all that to give up now. And I have to do this for my friend, for my family, for my son, for myself. So I don't know what the hell. I don't have a plan, but something will happen. And I'm sitting there inside the restaurant, and I don't know how I looked, but I remember this family coming and looking at me and asking me, are you okay? And I'm like scared. I'm like, who are these people? What are they going to do to me? And they offered me their leftovers. I remember giving me the white foam box, and that's the first time ever that I had pizza in my life. I had never had pizza, and it was damn good. I was so hungry. I had food for days,
Yeah.
And so I sat there. What am I gonna do? Where do I go from here? So once again, I don't think. I'm absolutely sure that God's plans are amazing, as we know. I had in my little bag, I had a little book with some phone numbers, but people that I hadn't had contact in a long time. There was this boy that went to school with me. Johnny Franco is his name. His mom had come to the States many years prior to, she knew my family, and then she sent for her kids. So we were very good friends before he left. And he left me his mom's phone number, and he said, maybe someday you'll give me a call, I'll give you a call. So I had that number with me. And I asked someone to help me. I didn't know how to use a payphone. I never used a payphone in my life. I asked someone to help me place a phone call. Because being at the border of, it was in Calexico and Mexicali. That's where I crossed the border. A lot of people speak Spanish there, because they're so close to the border. So this person helped me to place the phone call, and his mom answered the phone, and I'm trying to explain to her, this is Helen. My mom's name is Yolanda. This is Yolanda's daughter, and da 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 da. And she's like, oh my God, of course I remember you. Where are you? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm here. I just crossed the border, and I'm explaining to her what's going on. I'm here left alone. My friend got caught. She said, my son will be home around 4. Can you call back? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm going to try to call back at 4. And I did. And they drove from LA all the way to Calexico to pick me up. That was several hours of driving, because they lived in LA, and this was way on the other side of San Diego, like closer to, not necessarily on the side of Tijuana, but Calexico, if you don't, I don't know exactly where it's in reference of TJ, but they drove all the way to pick me up, and took me to their home. And then the next journey started. I'm in America now. What?
Yeah. What's the next journey?
Trying to figure out how am I going to get in a job. This is when I just first crossed the border. Went to their house, and they helped me to clean up and gave me a few days to recover, and let my mom know that I made it. It's funny, they were getting me ready to get a job, and I remember she said, we have to go get your social security number. I'm like, now I laugh because I know what it is, right? Back then I'm like, okay, so that you can go to work. I'm like, okay. And I remember going to a park, which now I know is MacArthur Park in LA. It's a very, I don't know if you guys are familiar with
I
MacArthur
heard of
Park.
it from a movie.
You do? Yeah,
Money talks.
it's a rough place. And so that's where you go to buy a social security number. You pay whatever and they give you a number. And then when you apply for, you don't know. I had no idea what number, whose number, or whatever, but I used that number for many years to work and pay taxes and do my taxes. And that's all I knew. I didn't know how that worked. And then, going to a payphone to call my mom in Guatemala to let her know that I'm alive, I'm here. I left home April 23rd, and it wasn't until early June that I was able to let her know that I made it, and I was able to let her know that I was okay. Started looking for jobs, and I did all sorts of jobs. I work cleaning rooms in a hotel. I worked washing cars in parking lots. There was a group, this is a funny story too now, with Christian. My son is a clown and goes, "Mom, you had an opportunity, you blew it." Well, I was working in this parking lot in Beverly Hills. And then that didn't mean anything to me. I was on Rodeo Drive in this parking lot, where people will come and wash. So one day, this Mercedes come, a gray Mercedes, that, like I said, then I didn't know anything about anything. I'm just, okay, and this very handsome African-American guy comes out of the car. And, I was a young girl, and I've always been I was really skinny. I didn't have muscles, but I've always been in shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's looking at me and he's like, "Wow, what, he's trying to talk to me. At what time are you done?" And somebody's helping me. And I'm like, and he's like, "Can I come back and give you a ride?" And I'm scared. I'm like, "No." And, and he's so nice and he smiled. So it was Eddie Murphy. Doggone it. You see what my son said?
I'm trying to think of, I'm like, is it Denzel? Is it Shaq?
It was Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, my son Christian says, "Mom, I could have had him as a stepdad. You blew it."
That is a good story.
It is a great story.
Yeah.
If I wanted to run into him now, I couldn't find him. But, so, the things like that. And, I worked a lot of jobs. And then I finally landed a job in a candy store in Santa Monica. Beautiful place by the beach, so I would take the bus there every day and work. And it was good. Back then, the minimum was $3.25 an hour. That's what I was making, with a kid to take care of.
Yeah.
Paying rent. There was I wasn't making it. So, it was time to get 2-3 jobs at a time. I would work all the time. And then in 1989, I believe, 1986 is when I was there. I was working at this store, and then it's when immigration started to be an issue for business owners that had illegal immigrants working. The first amnesty came through, which was through President Reagan. Uh-huh. But you had to be in the country 1982 in order to qualify to apply for a permit to work legally. And I had entered in 1986, so I didn't qualify for that. And the lady that I worked for, she was scared. It was a small a family business owned. And she's like, I'm nervous to have you here like this. Tell me, what can we do to help? How can we help you to get legal? And there was really no, it's not that easy. And that's what people don't understand, that you can just walk up there and say, "I want to become legal. Where do I apply?" It doesn't work that way. Each country is different. Each country has to have some sort of program that you qualify for. So there was no hope for me, and she said, "Find out, what can we do? Anything that you need, I will help you, but I can't have you here working illegal." And that's when I started investigating, how can I become legal? What can I do? And it's when I fell in the wrong hands. It was a gentleman that told me, "I can help you. We have to go to Northern California to get some documents. And if you pay $2,500, and he conned me and some other girls like that. And we rode with him in this pickup truck and we never came back. That's when all that happened with the human trafficking and stuff, So it wasn't until after that that I was able to, once again, there's something good that happens out of every bad situation. You just gotta, you just gotta find that. Because me working in the agricultural fields, even though it was against my will, that helped me to apply for a permit to work. And that's how I became legal. So, like I said, you gotta be careful what you pray for. Because God will give it to you not exactly the way you want it. And He is the only one that knows the reasons why things go the way they do. But He knew that there was something good at the end of this, and He allowed it to happen, however that works. But that's how I became legal in the country, through the agricultural program, because I worked in the agricultural fields. And I was on as a temporary resident for 8 years. Every year I had to go to an appointment at the immigration office, and they will check my record. No felonies, you didn't collect welfare, you didn't get arrested, you pay your taxes, stamp for another year. For 8 years I was checked like that. After the end of the 8th year, they gave me my permanent resident. And it was years later, when I started to compete and traveling international, that I decided to become a citizen. But that's how all that happened. And then after that, my son Christian was born in the States, and that added to my load. I had a son to take care of back home. Then I'm here pregnant again. And it was another chapter that started then.
Got 3 travel back questions. I don't remember if you told us how you escaped exactly from the trafficking.
We were in a motel in a really nasty place in Patterson, California. And there was, like I said, maybe 20 of us. And there were several rooms where they kept people. And, after month, you kind of befriend your oppressors. You try to, it's like being in jail. I've never been in jail, but I hear being in jail, you nice to your COs, they're nice to you. And so I have to say I played that card because I knew that was my only way out. And I got to be trusted a little bit. But my plan was, the first moment that I will run. And it was me and 2 other girls. And we escape, we run. We asked for a ride. And we were petrified of even turning these people on, going to the police. I'm like, this chapter, this is left behind for me. I escaped. We left Northern California. We got on a Greyhound bus back to LA and never looked back.
Were they sleep or something, or sleep on the job or something?
They will always be outside smoking or talking, or if they weren't doing that, they were messing with somebody. And the saddest part of all this is that these people were Hispanic. They were Latinos. And it's sad. But that's how that happened.
Are you still in contact with, had those 2 women that escaped with you, and have you contacted your friend that...
The 2 girls I escaped with, no. We went back to LA. Everybody found where they were going, and we kept in touch for a short period of time. And then I looked for, I didn't even know their last names or anything. We were not allowed to talk and be together. Now, my friend who got caught at the border, she was sent back. And once I got here, and called my mom, I was asking her, have you seen, her name was Elba. And she's like, no, what happened? And I told her, because she's not bad. So for years, I didn't know about her. I really thought that she was dead. Something happened to her, until I would say maybe about 5 years ago, I found her on social media. It came through my feed, and I recognized the face. She had changed her last name, but that was her. And I was like, it took me back to those days, and I immediately contact her. We talk. We don't talk as much as often, but we talk once in a while, and it's like, for her, I've noticed that she doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
She doesn't. I do, but she doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know what happened to her when she got caught, and said, I don't know, because she said, oh, I did just send me back, but very aloof and very not details. I don't try to, I'm just glad that she was okay. And it was because now she seems to be doing great, got married, has several kids. And, but yeah, that was a story.
What about talking to your mother on the phone? Like, did you hear relief over her? Did you like
when I called
when
her
you first
to let her,
when you first
absolutely,
called
she
her?
cried.
What was that
And I
like?
can hear my grandmother on the back that she almost had a heart attack from happiness. She was, oh my God. I was, in a, I don't know, for me, grandma was my rock. She's literally, my mom, she was a nurse in the hospital in the village, so she was always working. But my grandma was always there. Grandma was the one that, that she did everything for me. And so she was about to have a heart attack when she heard that I was okay. So yeah, and my mom too, and they were begging me just to come back, and I'm like, no, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I didn't do all this for no reason. So, and I had my sister. My sister is 5 years younger than me. She stayed back home, but I sent for her years later. So I pay for her trip to America, and I'm not talking about a plane ticket. You know what a coyote is?
No, ma'am.
You do. A coyote is what they call the people that help people to cross the border.
Okay.
It's a coyote.
Okay.
Yeah, it's individuals that they're scary too, because the stories that you hear that happen to women, especially coming across the border, is horrific. They
take advantage of
Oh, absolutely. That's why when I came, I told my friend, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it alone. We're not going to pay somebody to take advantage of us. If we make it, we'll make it. If we want, we want. But I don't want to be. So we did this alone. We just got on the train, and we're going to watch and follow and see what people do. And you meet good people on the trip. You make friends, and there's people that you can tell that they want to support each other. We just had to be very careful. But yeah, so that's my sister came years after, and she came to join me in LA. And now she lives in Virginia.
I can't get this visual out of my head of the people taking you in, the people that you called coming to pick you up, and you said you went to their house, right?
Yeah.
You cleaned up, right?
Yeah.
And all that. So being in that restroom, probably a nicer restroom than you probably ever been in, combing your hair, looking in the mirror, cleaning yourself. What did you see then?
As excited as I was to be finally in America, I was sad for my people. I felt guilty in a way to have gotten away from that and leave them behind. There was times where I thought about going back, but the dreams that I had for myself and my son were bigger than that, and I'm glad that I was able to overcome that. But yeah, it was absolutely very difficult for me to be away from my family. I had never been away from my family, and it was very hard times.
What do the turn up look like once things start turning around a little bit in America? Once you start,
Yeah. After all the coming back from being kept hostage for all that time, being free from that, getting my my legal status in the country. At least I had a permit to work. So I started looking for better jobs. And the better job, because of my English was so limited, was a housekeeper in a hotel. So I worked at a Hilton hotel. Are you familiar with LA? The Wilshire district. So Wilshire and Normandy. There was a hotel right at the corner where I was hired as a as a room attendant, as a housekeeper. That was a really hard job. I mean, I feel sorry for those ladies because people have no idea when you go into a hotel room. I will never look at this. I go in a hotel room, and even when we were on vacations with my kids, they will get mad that, Mom, this is not home. Just leave it alone. And I'm cleaning. I'm cleaning. Pick that up.
That's
Clean
me.
the trash. Thank you for doing that.
Restaurants
because
too.
that was a very difficult job for me. You had to clean 16 rooms in a day, vacuum, change the bed, clean the counters. It was very tough. And there was days when I didn't have enough time to finish all those 16 rooms, so I would just pull the sheets, and the same sheets, there's no time to change them. So when I go to hotels now, I kind of bring my own sheets because I don't know what they
You
do.
know what you
And the glasses, I would just remember going and put glass cleaner and make it shiny, and they're ready to go. So I don't use those either. So I tell you that.
Yeah.
But and I remember doing that, and I was caught. I didn't know that they mark the sheets. Then supervisors come behind you and they're like, Helen, come here, I want to talk to you. You didn't change the sheets. Oh, yes, I did. No, you didn't. So I got in trouble. But the manager at the time, his name was Charles. And I once in a while I'd say hi to him in Facebook because he was very what is the word that I'm looking for? He helped to change my life without knowing it,
Okay.
Instead of, he knew how, I always try to, my English was getting better. I will always, in my free time, I will try to read and write just to, I will practice, I will speak even when I wasn't afraid to do it.
Yes,
and he could see my grit. He could see my desire of to do better. So he was really cool. He says, you know what, Helen? He goes, I could fire you for this, but I see that you have potential for something else. He said, there is a position in the restaurant. I was at the West, actually, by that point, I was working at the Westin Bonaventure Hotel. I had left Hilton and I went to the Westin Bonaventure Hotel. You know what, that hotel, the round towers in downtown that have the elevator that is suspended outside? So that's what I was working. And he said, there's a position in the restaurant upstairs for a hostess. If you apply, I will put a good word in there for you. I think that you will do better in that environment than cleaning. So I did. I applied and I got the job. So that's when things started to, turn for me. And my life was looking better. And my English was, like I said, it was very limited, but I knew how to greet people. That was my job, right? Hello, welcome to Westin Bonaventure Hotel. Can I take you to the table? And that I memorized that. And there was VIP guests that will come all the time, and you will have that list with people name. So when they come in, you will check who they were. I memorized all those names. So every time I saw these people come in, I will greet them by their name. I remember Mrs. McLaughlin was a lady that I had a hell of a time learning how to pronounce that. I would look at the spelling, McLaughlin. I'm like, where is the F in there? But anyway, so I made an impact on these people. And they will always write good reviews about, me. And I always made them feel at home. So it was a good thing. From there, I got promoted to the VIP club where people will go and, when you have a continental breakfast at hotels, but this is just for like VIP people. So I was in the VIP room now. And so, I was able to interact with other kind of people and practice my English and, sharpen my skills, whatnot. My uniform was a tuxedo, I was looking all sharp and stuff. So it was really good. And working there, I met My ex-husband. He was a project manager for that location. We met and we got married. That was another turn in my life because he didn't speak Spanish. I didn't speak very good English, so that helped me. Um, he taught me um, the other side of the coin, per se, showed me there was a better life, introduced me to different type of neighborhoods. I lived in what I could afford. When my son Christian was little, we lived in this place that if the lights went off, the roaches will come out in forces. I had to literally cover Christian's ears so that the roaches wouldn't crawl in there. Seriously, it was horrible. The building was condemned at one point. It was horrible. So I did what I could with what I had. But when he came into our lives, definitely it taught me that there was more out there that I didn't know. And for that, I will always be grateful because I always had the ambition of good ambition to better myself, to do better. That's what I came here for. I wasn't okay with washing cars. I wasn't okay with cleaning rooms. I'm like, I gotta do better. So meeting him was definitely a huge turn of events for me and my son. And, practicing my English with him, it got better. I educated myself in other things. And we lived in better neighborhoods, where my son was able to go to good school districts and life got better, and I started having better opportunities for better work, better jobs. And so that was where life in America really started to turn for me.
And I understand in that thing as far as like seeing people who work in hotels too, because even we took a cruise like in 2015, and it was all foreigners. I don't know where they were from, but they were so nice. They made these little animal things
With
on
the
the bed,
towels?
yeah, with the
Yeah, and
towels
leave
and
you there on
stuff
the
like
bed?
that.
Yes.
And I was like, and they couldn't accept tips and stuff too. But then I asked them, I'm like, well, yeah, where do these people sleep at? They said they sleep at the bottom of the ship. And they like I don't know. I got real sad when they said that. Like,
Yeah.
and then like they don't really, they really own them. That's why
They are proud of what they do.
yeah.
It's really, and that's something about our our community, our people, my people, I'm going to say, we take pride in what we do. It doesn't matter if we are the janitor or the CEO, we're going to work as hard in everything we do because of our history.
Yeah.
We come from a country where you've been oppressed, there's no opportunities. So coming here and making $10 an hour, it's a life changing
Yeah.
situation for a lot of people, you know. So
So at what point did you start competing again when you got
so I got married,
okay.
while working at that hotel, met my ex-husband. We got married. He was a project manager for Westin Hotels. So we moved quite a bit. We met in LA. From LA, we moved to Boston for a while, came back to LA, moved to Vegas, lived in Vegas, went to Oklahoma, and then we ended up here.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were in Oklahoma, Oklahoma, it took, that was another world. I mean, for me, coming from Guatemala to California was much easier than coming from California to Oklahoma. Um, People in Oklahoma, I don't know if things have changed now, but they were not very welcoming to diversity, and I felt it everywhere I went with him. He was born in Kansas City. That's how I ended up here. So he's blue-eyed, blonde, and me. And so I always felt such an outcast. People always are staring, but it's not a staring with, I see people staring at me sometimes. They admire what they see, but they were like disgusted. You know what I mean? It's a different staring. And by then I had, my son Dennis had joined. He had come from Guatemala to join the family. I had Christian, my second son. I adopted my niece, and I had a little girl with my husband. So I had 4 kids all of a sudden. I'm in Oklahoma where I'm going crazy. I'm like, what am I doing here? So I went through some time in my life where all that, being working full time, being a mother of 4, a wife, living in an environment that I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy being in Oklahoma. So there was a lot going on my head, and I started, having issues with mental health. It was taking the best out of me. I was feeling depressed. It just I wasn't feeling. I was in a very bad place in my head, and just out of frustration and everything that I was experiencing, I joined the gym. I needed to do something, and I didn't know what I was doing. I joined the gym, and I will go and do cardio every day. I remember that my cardio machine of choice has always been the Stairmaster. I love that thing. I hate it, but I love it. We have a
Okay.
hate-love relationship. And I started doing that thing like a mad woman. I wouldn't get off of it until I burned 1,000, 1,200 calories every day. And that was my recharge. I will feel much better. So I didn't have a lot of weight to lose, but I got in better shape. And then shortly after that, we moved to Kansas City, and we moved to Liberty. So we went to Liberty from all places, and Liberty was not what it is now. Back then it was just in the beginning stages of being developed, and I'm like, oh Lord, here I'm in the woods again.
Okay. Yeah.
So I joined the community center. So I would go work out, and I started just playing with the weights. I had no idea what I was doing, and I remember this lady comes to me and says, "You have really good figure. Genetics are crazy." It hasn't been difficult for me to develop muscle, and she said, "You should do a show." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, do a show?" She's like, "Really, you will do really well. Your figure is da 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 da." And I'm like, "No, thank you." And she would just on me all the time. And she's like, "If you do it, I'll help you. There is a show in 2 weeks, that I can help you. And there's a show in Liberty that is still going on every April." Finally, she convinced me. I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try, see what we can do." 2 weeks. Just remember that a true preparation for a show, it's anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks, depending on your conditioning. So I did 2 weeks prep, and I did that show, and I placed second. So I have always, even before that, I've always had a very competitive nature. I'm like, second place, and I didn't even really do, what? There's another show in September. This was April. It's another show in September in Overland Park. If you want to do it, I can help you. I did. And that was with, there's several federations in bodybuilding, if you know. That was with another federation called the WNBF. And so I did. It was the Gold's Gym Classic, had a show back in those days. So I went and I did that show, and I took first place. So I liked it. I was like, okay, I don't know where this can go. And I continue. I went back, and that was with that federation. But then what really matters is the NPC and the IFBB. You can be a pro in any other federation, but it doesn't mean anything. It's the NPC and the IFBB. So I started getting ready for another show for the following spring, and I got the overall. So I got hooked. I loved it. Then I fell in love with the discipline of the sport. That's what motivated me to compete. I love the journey. The destination, yeah, you get on a stage for 60 seconds and you show what you have done. But what defined me was that journey to get there. I didn't quit. I got there. and I won. That was the cherry on top of the pie. So it that discipline, I took that discipline and I applied that to other aspects of my life. It made me a better mom, made me a better person, a better professional. I loved it. But at the same time, like I was telling you before we started recording, bodybuilding, it's a sport for broken up people inside. You're not in good shape inside when you get into this sport. I was having trouble in my marriage in that time. And I found something that validated me. And I felt I'm on top of I'm all this here, who needs you kind of thing. I could have saved my marriage, maybe. So I continue to compete for 7 years on the quest of I want to be a pro. I want to be a pro. I want to be a pro. 7 years later, I competed at junior nationals in Chicago, and I got my pro card. Then I started competing nationally. I got divorced through all that. Not because of that, but that didn't help. It's a very egotistic sport. You become in love with yourself. I have seen so many couples, friends suffer from it. Marriages get broken. Girls, there's so much supplementation to the sport that interfere with your mental health, with your moods, with everything. And if one person is in it and the other one isn't, it's hard to comprehend what's going on. So it as wonderful as it was a learning experience as well for me. And in 2009, I became a pro in 2008. I had my first competition international in Spain. I came back from Spain and I was feeling really tired. I didn't know what was going on. Recovering was really taking longer than usual. So I went to the doctor for a physical, and they called me and they said, hey, we need to talk to you. Your blood work is a little not normal. We need to find out what's going on. Okay, I go back and he's like, are you sick? Have you been sick? No, 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 no. They did the blood work again. Same thing. So the doctor said, there's definitely something going on. You either are you HIV positive, you have cancer, or some type of infection. None of that sounded good. Right. I got tested for HIV. I was fine. Thank God. I was tested for infection, whatever, everything fine. So the quest to start what's going on, because my white cell count is all over the place. And I can shake this fatigue and tired. After so many testing and figure out what, I'd get the phone call, and I'm diagnosed with cancer. I had a stomach cancer, almost stage 3 cancer, and I didn't know. So it was a very defining moment. When you were told you have cancer, it was like everything just shut down, and everything was silent around me, and I'm thinking, how am I going to tell my kids? What are they going to do if I die? And you just start going through all this turmoil, and the doctor said there's no time to waste. We have to do surgery. They found that it was in my stomach lining. And so I go home. I'm driving around like not knowing where to go. And I remember my first stop was my son was living with his ex-wife in North Kansas City. I stopped by there and I said, I need to talk to you. And, my kids and I have always been very close, no matter what. And he goes, yeah, Mom, what's going on? And I said, I have cancer. And I remember his face, and, he starts crying and hugged me. And I'm, it's going to be okay, I have to, this was on a Thursday. I was scheduled for surgery that following Monday. So I went in for surgery because they found the problem on this side of my stomach. When I wake up, I'm cut from here to here. The cancer had spread to the other side, so they couldn't stop. They continued to, cut, and they had to cut layers and find where I didn't have any more cancer cells. It was a very extensive surgery. So I came out of that terrible shape. It was horrible. The recovery from that surgery was brutal. I had I don't know how many staples all across my stomach. My core was completely gone. I couldn't even turn in my bed, and I had to have help for everything. They sent me home, and they wanted to send a nurse with me and whatnot, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm gonna get out of bed. I'm gonna get up to the bathroom. I'm not going to the bathroom in bed. And with everything I had, with all the pain that this caused me, but I get up from the bed and I'll go to the bathroom with myself. I went through months and months of recovery for that. And 2 months into that, I find out that it was in my lung. So it was found at a very early stage. So I had radiation, and it was eradicated. Thank God there was no, I didn't need chemo or radiation or surgery for my lung. But I went through 5 months of radiation, which was excruciating. I was in my 40s then, and all that sent me into an early menopause, which, threw me off another loop. So time went by, after months and months of recovery and treatments and then corrective surgery, because when they opened me up, the doctor was a surgeon. He wasn't trying to make my stomach look good, just
Right.
get out of the problem, get the problem out. So it was all sorts of not just aesthetics, but how they had put me back together. Then I found out, the doctor told me that they barely had enough skin to close me up. So everything there was so tight because I had no fat in me. So it was a very hard recovery from that. And, the radiation messed with my joints. I was so weak. I had lost all my muscle. And then I went into another situation. I was so angry. I was angry at life. I was angry at God. I was like, why? I take care of my body. I exercise. I eat well. What kind of, I was angry, asking why me? And it took me years to, I tried to go back to the gym. I would go for a little bit. Then I will got, never mind. I don't want to be here again. It reminds me of everything that I used to do or used to be. I'll never get there again. It was very difficult. My mind was messed up. I went into very deep depression due to that. I couldn't assimilate that in my mind. So I I had really bad mental problems with. I got suicidal. I did not. I hated life. I didn't want to go on again anymore. And it's like nights will come in, and I will feel like something took over me, and I will just get in my car and drive, and just I didn't want to go on anymore. And I remember one night, I'm like, this is it. This is too painful. I can't go on. I went to Home Depot and I bought a gallon of Drano and 2 cinder blocks. And I drove to the lake. I was ready to check out. I remember so well being there. I was crying, I was shaking. And I was like, deep down, I'm like, God, I don't want to die. But it's the best thing to do. It will be better for me to be gone. This is too much. It hurts too much. And I really didn't know what was it that hurt so much. And in my turmoil in my brain and everything that I was experiencing at that moment, I remember sitting right at the edge of the lake, Longview Lake, and I looked up, and there was the moon. You could barely see it through the clouds. And I looked up, And I saw my mother's face in it, you know, for some reason. And I thought about my mom, and I'm like, I know my mom will die when she finds out that something happened to me. She has a bad heart. My mom has a really bad heart condition. I said, my mom, I will kill my mother too. And I started to cry, and I'm shaking, and I'm screaming there by myself in the middle of the night. And I called my friend Kathy, and I said, I'm about to die. I don't know what to do. She came to pick me up and said, Helen, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. I just hate life. Everything that has happened to me, it's, I can go back to what I like. I don't know what to do. And she said, Helen, have you checked your hormones? And that's another topic that it's so important, because everything that I was experiencing, yeah, it was triggered with all the events. But like I said, radiation sent me into a menopause. So I had no hormones left in my system. And that was messing with, when it goes for men and women. When you have an imbalance of hormones in your system, it's going to affect you more than physically. So she talked to me about age hormone replacement therapy, which I looked into it. I went to a doctor, blah, blah, blah. They, put me on a treatment that I had been on for almost 6 years now. And it was like night and day, gave me my life back. Like literally, I was like, wow, why did I want to die? It was really shocking to that I could have lost my life over something. I mean, it wasn't simple, because what I went through was a lot.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to get back to where I was. And even going through all that, I never lost the passion for bodybuilding, for fitness. That was always in my heart. I wanted to get back to that. And I couldn't find the courage to do so for two reasons. When I was diagnosed with cancer, and I talk about this when I tell you that there's a lot of supplementation in this sport, and there's a lot of lives. You know how many bodybuilders have died from supplements. I mean, that's a thing. I mean, whether they wanted to admit it or not is another story. But so there was a lot of before I went to, I was going to compete in my first world competition, and I was like in the clouds, right? I'm all, wow, I'm going to compete international, blah, blah, blah. So I got a little bit too, I don't know what the word, I'm going to say stupid, because that was stupid. I found myself doing some supplements that I shouldn't have. And after, when I was diagnosed with cancer, the doctor told me, I am not going to put this in writing, but I'm going to tell you that you screwed yourself, because what you did, you already had the condition in your body, the cells, the cancer cells, and this, you woke them up. So growth hormone is not good. It is a great thing, but it doesn't pick and choose what's going to grow, if it makes sense. So I am saying that to say that God saved me. I started doing everything for the wrong reasons. I was full of myself. I was on a higher level, what bodybuilder had gotten to my head. And I neglected a lot of things that were important, and at some point, even bodybuilding became my God. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter what was going on. Mom had to go to work out, and I had to get my meals on time, or everybody will pay for it. I'm not going to say I neglected my children, but I took a lot of time that could have been their time for what I loved so much. So that became my God. And if you guys are a man of faith, you know that God is a very jealous God. And anything that becomes your God, he's going to let you know that, excuse me, that's not how it works. So I feel that God allowed cancer coming to my life. It was like he put me on timeout to think about what I was doing and how and where I was going. He saved me. I have an addictive personality. When I like something, I go into it. And I know that if this wouldn't have happened, I probably would have continued with things that I shouldn't have, and it would have been really bad for me. So that saved me. That was my time out. So all that when I'm on the other side of it with a big scar in my stomach. But inside me, that flame, that fire to compete was still there. I believe firmly that we all have a gift. This is your gift. You're good at getting people to, to talk, to tell their stories. That fulfills you, I can tell.
Yes, ma'am.
And you love what you do. I love what I do. And that has allowed me to help a lot of people, to talk to a lot of people. They come to me for what they see in the outside, and that opens the door for so many things, and I have been able to help people. So that's my gift.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wasn't ready to give up yet. I just didn't know how to get back to it. First of all, the scar was an issue for me in my head, right? And another thing was spiritually, because I recognized once I recovered from all that I wasn't acting right in God's eyes. And he allowed that to happen for me to see how I was conducting my life, if you may.
Want to become a monster.
Right. So I wanted to get back, but I was afraid. I'm like, how am I going to go back to the very same thing that almost killed me, almost turned me into something that I am not, and more than anything, something that God doesn't want me to be. So how am I why do I want to do this? And I'm like, God, why do I love this so much? Please replace it with something else. And it just never went away. So it wasn't until one day, I tried to prepare for shows so many times, and I would look in front of the mirror and I'm like, no way. This scar is, how am I going to stand on a stage with this? But that was a lesson for me to learn, and I got one day just something click, and I'm like, I have always fought. I gave everything I had to prep for a show and look perfect, and my body was perfect and whatnot, to fight for a trophy for a medal. So I got to a conclusion that this scar was the trophy for my life. That was a competition for my life. And I won that show, that competition. I won. I placed, I won it. It's mine. Why am I ashamed? And if I go out there and I am not so perfect like everybody else, that's going to tell a lot of people out there that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be shiny and pretty to have value. So once I got to that point, I got back to train. And it's when I was recruited by Guatemala, I did bigger things after than before. I competed in Australia and Spain and Colombia and Mexico. I have won medals, gold medals for my country. I was able to inspire other women that were not so perfect. So when you do things for the right reason, it's not what you do, it's for whom are you doing it to. And if he's got the glory, and if that's the reason behind it, there's no room to fail. Yeah. And that's the lesson I've learned from that.
What's one of the greatest messages you received from your help?
I'm gonna tell you a story.
Okay.
I was at the grocery store one day. There's times when all of us, we question ourselves. We question, I can't do this anymore. And there's times when I'm like, why can't I just be fat and happy and eat nachos every night? I'm tired of taking care of myself. I don't want to eat chicken and this anymore. I would just let me, I want to quit. So I'm at a grocery store one day. I'm going down, and all of a sudden, there's a lady behind me with her daughter, and they kept following me. I stopped, they stopped. I turned, they turned. And I'm like, I got kind of, so I turned away the corner. They turned the corner, and I stopped, and I turned around. And they're like, I'm sorry, but we were just admiring your body. You look so good. There's bodybuilders out there, but you have muscle, and you're so femme. And they are just being so sweet. Yeah. How do you do this? And her daughter was 16 years old, very overweight. Yeah. And she also was overweight. So that was on the days and time where I was questioning everything that I was doing. I don't want to do this anymore. Why do I do this? Amazing. And she asked me, she was like, well, what do you do? How do you do? And I'm like, well, I eat well, I this, I that. This is what I do, blah, 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 blah. And I look at her card and she has all sorts of bad food in there, cookies and ho-hos, whatever have you, and so I said, do you really want to know how I shop and what I eat? She said, yes. I said, if you're really serious, I said, put all that back and I'm going to tell you what to take for dinner home tonight. So she did. We went. I said, this is what you're going to cook tonight. Okay. We exchanged numbers. Her name is Marie. She called me. She said, can you come to my church and talk to the women at my church? So I did. And I was able to inspire a lot of those women, Up until this day, Marie lost so much weight and it's just so beautiful. She moved to Florida. She lost her daughter to diabetes. She had a heart attack. She died at 17 years old. That was horrible.
The next year.
Yeah. But she changed her life and her life story and her lifestyle completely. So those messages, those reassurances, when I want to quit, something always happens to that, something like that, that reassures me that I am in the right place. I'm doing the right thing. Like I was saying, things like that is what motivate me to keep going. But I also know, I will, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I will be 60 years old this year in September. So the outside is great, but I know that my body is, my recoveries take longer. I have a lot of aches and pains that I didn't have before. Time goes by, and you can't stop the course of life in Mother Nature, if you know what I mean. So I know that the time is coming for me. I'm planning on starting my prep to compete in October again, and after that, I don't know, how I'm gonna feel, what's gonna happen, but I am preparing to transition into another initiative that is going to have fitness incorporated, but it's gonna be more what I call fitness from the inside out. So I have started that initiative that is gonna be out there very soon.
Is there more information you want to give about that, or?
Yes, it's actually, we put the first interview. It's out there on social media, and there is a YouTube with a full interview. It's called Healing with Helen, and that is going to be a platform, a safe space for women and men, because I know many men that have told me, Helen, we want to be there whenever you're ready. And it's talking about everything that I have told you that I have experienced. I want to open that door for people to come in and put it out there, because for me, I have found that for me, talking about it helps me heal. And so I want to create that for somebody else. Like, people see me out there and they see Helen always, oh, you look so nice, you look good, you do this, you're doing that, but they don't know what's in here. So that's why I am not afraid, ashamed, or scared to put out there my dirty laundry, per se, so that people know that we all go through things like that. And it's okay to come out and talk about it.
Yeah.
Put it out there. When we have support, you need support to get through things. You need a community. You need people that love you and can share similar stories with you. So that's what Healing with Helen it's about. And maybe, not maybe, so I'm working next year. I want to take this into a nonprofit organization. And, I'm also in the works of getting a book signed and put my story out there. So those are.
Movie, book, all of that.
So yeah, that's I have spent so much time. I have spent so much time in fitness and prepping for competing, that time has to be filled with something else. You can't take something out of your life and not replace it with something positive, because it's not a good thing.
Did you ever feel like you was painting the story of your life while you was posing? Like they could see it through your body?
Yes. Yes. It was always I couldn't even believe that that was me
Mm-hmm.
there, It is. It's funny that you say that because I never thought about it like that, but it's definitely, you
Yeah.
know, it's a story of my life. Every time that I get on that stage is I'm telling my story.
I'm sure there's somebody out there who could see it, like, because I always see people who see these canvases, these paintings, and can see a different thing than I see. I see a turd. They see a hole.
Exactly.
They see, and the other person to come, oh yeah, I see it. I don't.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
And more so now that I have been opening up and I started telling my story what maybe 2 years ago. So when I was invited to speak at different, at this event or that event to people that knew my part of my story. And so yeah, that has given people a different. So when they see that person there, I am not just a bodybuilder. I'm a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been able to, because of that, a lot of great things, blessings have happening. Where I was on Her Life magazine on the cover of it.
Okay.
And it was they told my story. I was the first Hispanic woman that was on the cover of Her Life magazine with with the family. I was also last year. I was the recipient of the Courage Award for Women in Sports.
Yes.
Also, the first Latina that received that award.
God is God.
I participated in Dancing with the Stars,
Really?
and I won.
So I have to send us a clip of that to add to the.
I have helped organizations. I was part of Big Brothers and Big Sisters fundraiser that we raised. I think it was like $1.2 million. The group that we had to help Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So it has given me a lot, a lot of blessings by sharing my story.
Yeah.
So that's what I encourage people to do the same. There's blessings to be found in the ashes and the rubble. There's always great stuff to find.
I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta ask one more question, please.
Sure.
Why did you keep such strong faith in God with all you've been through?
Because there's no other way to survive anything in life if you don't have God at the front. For some reason, we always leave God as the last resource when it should be the first that we turn to. And I've learned, through trials and tribulations. But I know that I've always kept God very close to my heart, even as a little girl, going through what I went through. If it wasn't because God was by my side, I wouldn't have survived any of the stuff that I have been through. And even now, I'm being tested in every. I mean, I don't want to specifically talk about, but being the mother of someone with an addiction, it's that is the most difficult thing that I have had to endure, because you love your children so much, and when you are losing them to something that has such a strong hold on them, and you see their will taken away, their life, it's just so painful, and you do everything, you want to fix it, you want to do it, and you can't. It's, and I have grabbed onto God here lately more than ever. I'm like, the story of Daniel, the story of Job, the story, I am like, it will be okay. It will be okay. And if you don't believe, if you don't have faith, and you don't have, without faith and hope, we're nothing. So he will always be at the front.
I think you said a lot. So, I mean, if you want to leave us marked out, you can. If not, just pray us out. Mark, you remember what I said marked out is?
Give me your mic. It was funny because he asked me for my indelible mark, and I had to think about it. You know who you are. I know my strengths, and in my weaknesses, but I've never had to think about what I would say if somebody asked me, so I had to write it down.
That works.
So Helen Ortiz, Indelible Mark, is her transformation of adversity into empowerment. From surviving human trafficking and cancer to becoming a gold medalist and a real estate leader in my community. I'm a built legacy of resilience, service, and inspiration, especially for my Latino community. My story reminds others to own their own voice and rewrite their narrative. You're the only one that has the power to rewrite your story. So that's
the power. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Now I'll say a prayer if you like.
Please.
Thank you, Lord, for this time,
Thank you, Father.
this platform, and the hearts that tune in today. In a world that rushes forward, help us honor the pace of grace. Remind us that every season, whether it's waiting, whether it's healing, whether it's building or blooming, it all has its purpose. Yes. May we walk in alignment with divine timing, with courage in our hearts and clarity in our paths. Let the words shared today ripple upward, planting seeds of strength, truth, and transformation. Amen.
Amen. The goal is to leave a lasting imprint on their minds and their hearts. We pray you've been indelibly marked. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was amazing. Oh, sorry.
It was about to happen. It couldn't be over until I smacked the microphone.